begin? Good evening. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Wilmette Zoning Board of Appeals. Ms. Roberts, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Boyer.
Here.
Mr. Colang.
Here.
Ms. Norick.
Here.
Mr. Sermon.
Here.
Chairman Schneider.
Here. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you new to our proceedings, the purpose of this board is to hear evidence on applications for variances from our zoning ordinance and on applications for special use. Based upon the evidence we hear this evening, we will make a recommendation to the Village Board of Trustees as to whether the application that came before us this evening should be granted or denied. We will vote to recommend granting or denying each application for variation based on whether the application meets the standards of review set forth in Section 5.4.f of our village ordinance. Applications for special use will be considered based on whether the standards of review set forth in Section 5.3.e of our village ordinance are met. The Village Board of Trustees will consider the recommendations we make this evening at the next regularly scheduled board meeting on August 27th. Our recommendations to the board are advisory only. The Village Board has final say on all applications and will make its own determination as to whether to grant or deny them. The Village Board is not legally bound by our recommendations. There is one small exception to this rule. If this board makes a negative recommendation with respect to an application, in order for the Village Board of Trustees to approve the application, a supermajority of 5 Village Board members must vote to approve it rather than a simple majority of 4. There's one other small peculiarity to our proceedings of which you should be aware. This board does not operate by majority vote. We operate instead by it's called a tyranny of 4. In other words, no matter how many board members are present on any given evening, in order to get a positive recommendation from this board, an application must receive at least 4 affirmative votes. We have 6 members present tonight, so 4 of the 6 are required to get a positive vote. Ms. Roberts, as Assistant Director of Community Development, sits with us tonight in an advisory capacity only and is not a voting member of the board. Therefore, please be aware that if there's a vote of 3 in favor of an application, it will technically go into the record as a negative recommendation to the Board of Trustees. In recognition of this unusual feature of our procedure, when we do not have all members of the board present on a given evening, we give the applicants who are scheduled to come before us tonight the option of requesting a continuance to the next available date on our schedule. The next available date for any applicant who would like to request a continuance this evening is August 21. There's no penalty for asking for a continuance. No such request will be held against you when your case is eventually heard. If you wish to ask for a continuance, however, you must do so at the beginning of your presentation before making any substantive arguments as to the merits of your case. Please also be aware that if you request a continuance, there's no guarantee as to how many board members will be present on the evening on which your case has been continued. The cases we shall hear this evening will be heard in the order set forth on the pre-printed agenda located on the table near the door. When your case is called, please proceed to the podium, state your name and address, and tell us exactly why your application meets the standards of review that are applicable to it. Each member of this board is a longtime resident of the village and has visited your property during the past week. In addition, we have received from the village staff these green booklets containing all the written information that you have submitted in support of your application, as well as any other correspondence that the village has received. Accordingly, it's not necessary that you repeat what you have already stated in writing. Please just hit the high points with particular attention to why you believe your application meets the standards of review. After the applicant has had a chance to speak, we will open the podium to others who wish to speak regarding the application. Everyone will be permitted to have their say, though we ask that you keep your comments as short and to the point as possible. After we have heard all oral presentations, I will close the evidence, and the members of the board will discuss what they have heard and take a vote. Once the evidence is closed, no further testimony on an application may be offered. The only people entitled to speak during that part of the proceedings will be members of the board. This meeting is a legal proceeding, and all testimony tonight must be given under oath. If you are planning to testify tonight, I would ask you to raise your right hand at this time and be sworn. Do you swear or affirm that you will tell the truth in the testimony that you're about to give? If so, please say, I do. Ms. Roberts, will you please call the first case?
Our first case is 2019 Z26-416 Wilshire Drive West. This is a request for a 9-foot side yard air conditioner condenser setback variation to permit the installation of an air conditioner condenser.
Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Eunice, and this is Jerry Shapiro. We've lived in our house at 416 Wilshire Drive West for the last 41 years. We have had at least 2, maybe 3 air conditioners in the place where we want to replace the one that is up for question now. We've never had a problem with it. Our property is very small, and there's really no other place to put an air conditioner. It's very, very hot outside and very uncomfortable, and we really need to replace our air conditioner.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When you had these previous ones that you replaced, did you ever have to get a variation?
No, we've never had any other. We've never dealt with the village on the issue of our air conditioner in all the 41 years that we've lived in our house.
Now, how did it come up this time?
The air conditioner salesman said he had to apply for a permit in order to get the so that he could replace it. And they would not issue him a permit because of being out of code. I think the code was written way after we moved into our house.
Right. How long ago was your last air conditioner replacement?
Well, it must be at least 10 years, maybe 15 years.
Ago? All right.
It's been a long time.
Lisa, have the codes changed in that time that would affect an air conditioner?
No, they haven't.
Oh, okay.
It's been 10 feet for a long time.
Okay. The contractor just,
Yes, it depends on which contractor you have.
have become more responsible, I guess.
And Lisa, I have a question for you. So since it's a double frontage lot, or a corner side, I should say, there's very limited areas where this can be installed. So along Wilshire Drive, the front yard, they couldn't, to the west side, they couldn't install it. And then to the north side, they couldn't install one either.
Correct.
And so
Not without
all along
relief.
the east side of the back, they would need a variance for that whole back side, which is basically their rear yard.
Right.
Okay.
I
Yes.
noticed that the neighbor has their condenser across from yours.
It's very close.
Have they objected at any time?
Nobody's ever objected to our air conditioner.
I was wondering the same thing, and I was wondering if they got a permit for it or a variance for it when they did it. But
Yeah, I don't know how far theirs is from the property.
Those
line.
2 air conditioners have been there for at least 40 years.
Any other questions?
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take a seat. We'll discuss it briefly. Thank you. Anybody want to discuss this application from the audience? Seeing no one, can I have a motion? Mr. Sermon.
I move to recommend granting a request for a 9.0 side yard air conditioner condenser setback variation to permit the installation of an air conditioner condenser at 416 Wilshire Drive West in accordance with the plan submitted.
I'll second that.
Second?
I think it's fairly straightforward. It's been there for 40 years at least, and because of the shape of the lot, I think there are restrictions. This is right near their patio, so it wouldn't be an ideal location that you want to pick. And plus, the adjacent neighbor has their air conditioner within about 10 feet of yours, so I can support it.
I have similar thoughts. If the neighbor doesn't have an objection, and because of the proximity of their unit, it would seem hard for them to object, then I don't see any issue with it.
I also noticed when Ms. Norick and I went back there that to the east of the corner of the house, between the patio and the proposed condenser unit, there's a patio door, a sliding door, which would be difficult to put. It wouldn't work if you put the condenser in front of it. And then you'd comply, but it would be an awkward situation. Any other comments? Come take a vote.
Okay. Mr. Sermon,
Yes.
Mr. Pelton,
Yes.
Mr. Boyer,
Yes.
Mr. Colang,
Yes.
Ms. Norick,
Yes.
Chairman Schneider.
Yes. Can you, please, why don't we come up and sign something? Not both of you, you can,
For both him.
over there.
This is just a notice of the village board meeting.
I move
You
to
can
authorize
sign
the
one for
chairman
me,
to
get one
prepare
for
the
you.
report and recommendation for the zoning board of appeals for case number 2019-Z26.
Second.
All approve?
Aye.
Okay.
Oh, it's the 17th. Thank you so much. That was for you. You can just take that one.
Yeah, if you'd like to attend the village meeting, I'm sure they would be happy to see you. It might be helpful if you could be there. That's August 27th, I think.
That's
Here.
yeah.
Thank you very much. So we have to wait till then before we can get our new air conditioner?
We should talk.
We'll talk about it. So do you need us here?
Nope, you are not.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening.
Not unless you want to stay, because it's cool in here.
That's nice.
Ms. Roberts, can you call the next one, case?
Our next case is 2019-Z25, 204 9th Street. This is a request for a 119.3 square foot rear yard pavement impervious surface coverage variation and a 40.8 square foot rear yard total impervious surface coverage variation to permit the construction of a detached two-car garage.
Thank you. Welcome. We've seen you here before.
We have, yes. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andrew Vandermoor. I'm here this evening with the homeowner for the project. Just quickly run through what you've seen and the information we've provided. The scope of this project is simply to provide a replacement garage to the one that is there currently. It's a small one-car garage now. The proposed garage will be a two-car 20-by-20 garage with access in an rather unusual fashion, access from the side of the garage. It is off the alley, but the idea for this particular project is to actually have a side-loaded garage from the north of the property. The new garage, as I mentioned, will replace a decrepit one-car structure, and the scope of the work will see the overall amount of impervious surface on the lot being reduced by approximately 340 square feet. The variations before you this evening are related to impervious surface. If you look at the difference between the existing site plan and the proposed site plan, you'll notice essentially that the garage is roughly in the same spot as it exists right now. There's a large asphalt parking pad on the property at the moment. Access currently to the garage is heading westbound, so as you're in the alley you turn heading west into the garage. The setback for that existing garage is about 17 or 18 feet, and as it stands currently, that has been a rather impractical way of getting into the garage. We'll have Drew will step up in a moment and sort of discuss with you the challenges they've had of getting into the structure as it's currently located. But I want to go first through the proposed plan. So the ideas that the civil engineer came up with in order to make the garage accessible was to turn it on its axis so that it faces north. The overhead door will face north to the north side of the property, and we'll have a similarly sized parking pad to what is currently there on the property at the moment as impervious surface. There's an asphalt parking pad there now. And the idea is you will access garage from the north, so you'll drive north down the alley, pull into the garage, and then exiting the garage will be reversing back out and then continuing driving, so I apologize, driving south down the alley into the garage and then reversing back to north and driving south out down to Gregory Street as a way of getting out of the garage. The idea behind the project from the engineering standpoint was trying to deal with, I don't know if you guys had a chance to drive down that alley. It's very narrow to begin with. It's probably one of the narrowest in the village at about 10 feet. There is a concrete retaining wall that was established for the neighbor on the east side of that alley. The wall is anywhere from 16 to 18 inches in height, and it's basically right adjacent to this particular property. It stops about 10 feet from the north property line and extends about 10 feet to the south of this property. As a result of that wall, it's very difficult to turn into the property heading westbound. So the engineer decided to revert the location of the garage, or change the location of the garage and make it accessible from the north. And the idea there with him doing that was to make it obviously more practical for the homeowners to get in, but critically his goal was to reduce the amount of impervious surface in order to get that coverage number down as much as possible. Those are the variations that we're looking at. They are impervious surface as it relates to the rear yard. But the hardship here is really tied to the way that alley lays out, and most particularly as it ties into that existing concrete wall that's adjacent on the east side of the alley. It's been very challenging, even with the garage in its current location, to get access into that, and that's 17 feet back from the rear property line. So the idea was to try and open up the property, or open up the lot, by altering the location or the entrance side of the garage and limiting the amount of impervious surface that's currently on the lot. The idea behind, the engineer's idea behind reducing the impervious surface was they were loosely aware of, if you've been out there, you can see that the water sheds directly to the east from the existing impervious surface. The owners are aware of the drainage challenges there, so that was the focus here, was to try and get that impervious surface down as much as possible while still actually being able to provide a structure that can be accessed in a measurable fashion, as opposed to trying to drive straight westbound off the alley. So while we recognize that the drainage concerns are there in the alley, the idea was to reduce that runoff into the alley by reducing the amount of impervious surface. This is, I've been here with quite a few garages and other projects. We understand this is a rather unusual design. The limitations are directly driven by the width of that alley, and more significantly by the height of that concrete retaining wall on the east side. So we feel as though this, in its reduction of impervious surface, is doing the best job possible while dealing with the challenges of the alley.
You mentioned a reduction from the existing configuration. Is that
That is correct, yes.
by how much?
By about 340 square feet.
From the existing impervious surface?
Correct.
And that is by, I notice here the existing garage with the approach is 40 feet from the property line in total. 22 plus 17 roughly, right? Into the yard,
existing?
yes.
So the existing garage is 17 feet in from the rear property line.
Right, plus 22 feet, the depth of the garage.
Oh, yes,
Total
correct.
is roughly 40
Right.
feet. And
Sorry.
what you're doing, you're pulling that back to the 23 feet, including the apron, is that correct?
Correct.
So there's a net reduction in impervious surface with this new proposal.
Correct.
Any other
I have
questions?
a question, Andrew. I understand the layout and everything else and the reasoning behind it. I just want to make sure, is that turnaround area pretty much the smallest that it can be to
So-
allow a car to get in comfortably?
Correct. So the setback requirements from the south pushed the garage a certain distance. Obviously, that lessened the amount of impervious surface. The engineer looked at ways of limiting this as significantly as possible. The reason why it's at this point squared off on that northeast corner is there is still a little concern, as you're coming southbound, the car that will be on the most easterly side of the garage,
Yeah,
pretty
to
easy
swing
access in.
around, yeah.
It's that second car that, may require a little bit three-point turning to get, to get in there. That's the reason why he's squared it off at that,
that
those two
corner.
lines, basically.
Okay. I have another question.
Sure.
That we run into. Sometimes people build new garages and then they decide they want to put in a new walk to the backyard, which then increases the impervious. So are they planning on using the existing walk that's there or making it wider?
We're planning on replacing the existing walk.
I think, sir, you need to come up and introduce yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, we're planning on replacing that existing walk. If you went by, you probably saw we did construction on the back of our house recently.
Okay.
And the whole back is torn up, and so
Oh, okay.
there's a walkway there that would be replaced in like manner.
And like width?
And
Like,
2-foot width, right? So what you see, Bob, on the proposed site plan is
Sure.
roughly 2 feet. That's
Okay.
exactly what the replacement will be.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
I see that the existing garage, they dealt with the narrowness of the alley by setting it back on the property so that you had some area to turn into. You could do that with the new garage, and if it was in the same relative depth as the existing one, you'd actually have less impervious surface than what you're proposing. I don't know that I see anything wrong with the garage as proposed, but I'm curious as to why it is that this solution is better than the existing one in terms of the entrance.
So I might have Drew answer that as it relates to specifically trying to
Yeah,
access that
we've
structure.
never actually been able to get a car into our garage, so dating back about 25 years, the village came along at some point and dug out the alley to lower it down and try and improve some of the drainage in here, and that's when those concrete walls went up. Essentially, since then, it's been extremely difficult to get in and out of there because there's walls. So directly to the south of my house, the alley is only 8 feet 8 inches wide, and at my house, it's only 9 feet 2 inches wide. So coming from that and shooting into these gaps, you find yourself hitting the wall. So we haven't put a car in the garage ever. We've hit the wall multiple times just getting it on and off the parking pad. And to go back, the people who lived there before us apparently just beat the heck out of the back of their car. It's just a really tricky spot because it's tight and it was sloped because it kind of came down about a foot, call it 20, 25 years ago when they tried to improve the drainage there.
So in answer to your question, if the solution was to locate the garage roughly in that spot, I mean, it would be pushed reasonably further back into the backyard, still with, you'd be at 20-foot width of asphalt there. You'd be 20 to 25 feet just because of that. What's really driving the issue that Drew's talking about is that the concrete wall on the other side. It just really limits
Oh, I
that
understand
turning
about the
radius.
concrete wall, yeah.
So,
I mean, the solution of driving past it and then backing in?
no, that was my mistake. So you're going to enter it southbound, drive in, and reverse out and continue southbound down
Okay.
to, so,
It's going to take some good driving,
Well, we think, I mean,
one way or the other, whether
Right,
you're
this-
backing in or backing out.
correct, it's,
right, but with a pad there that doesn't have a wall against it, there's actually more space for us to work with by using our space. The pad is currently up on the wall, so you can't kind of go over the pad. There's only a way in and out. So our goal is to kind of bring that out and use that space as you're coming in and out. But truthfully, I mean, it's a tight alley that I'd love somebody to address, but I don't know if that's realistic. 8 feet 8 inches is really tight. Even when you're going straight at it, it looks challenging
Yeah.
just to get.
So, if you have another.
Well, I have one more. The 3-by-3-foot pad on the proposed garage, is that a step entrance by the door?
yeah, it's just a code requirement as, you know, as you step out of the threshold of the garage.
I was just curious, I understand the wall or the raised curb on the other side of the alley. Is there one that goes along your property line in the alley that I missed when I was out there?
There is one on our side that'll come out with this proposal.
okay.
So our idea is to bring the pad down so that there's some space to try and maneuver.
Okay.
And then there's one directly south of us on our side, but behind my neighbor's yard.
Okay.
Any other comments? Hearing none. Please sit down, and we will see if anybody else wants to speak regarding this application.
There is a letter at your places as well.
Yeah, there's a letter regarding drainage, and I think the village required them to put rain barrels in, the neighbors. If you'd like to.
Please. Did you raise your hand to be sworn in?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good.
So my name is
Thank you.
Kathy Shanley, and my husband Mark and I have lived at 214 Ninth Street since 1993, and that is not immediately north, but the second house north of 204. So I did send this letter in today. We coincidentally have just had a garage built on our property that we just had the inspection this week. And I've enclosed pictures. I think you got the pictures. So we didn't need any kind of variation, partly because we have an older home. We haven't done an addition on the home, and perhaps this would also become an issue for us if we tried to do anything with our home. But so I guess I agree. I can see that my neighbor needs to have a new garage, and I agree with him that we're all dealing with the fact that this is really a problem alley. It's very narrow, and he has the particular issue of the concrete wall, but all along the alley, someone put in, the neighbors on the, I guess it's the east side, put up a big tall fence that's pretty much right at the alley line, so like in the winter, there's nowhere to push snow. So it is very tight. So that when we built our garage, it's actually, the driveway is a little longer than we would have preferred so that we could turn in so that we don't hit the fence. So I understand the issues. But the main concern that I have is the flooding in the alley. And the alley, we've lived there since '93. There's never been any work done by the village since that time. And all of the water settles pretty much behind my house, sort of in the middle of the block between my house and then, so that's 214 and 210 next door to us. And so it's been dry up until this evening, but pretty much for 3 solid months when we had all that rain, it was just full of water. You would drive through and it was like driving through a lake, and it doesn't drain at all. There's no drainage, and whatever the pitch, the water's not draining out of the alley. So I'm just a little bit concerned that this project not add to additional water being, because most of it doesn't drain out towards, say, Gregory Street. It drains into the middle of the block and sits in the middle behind my house. And as I said, when we did not have to apply for a variance, but the village did ask that we put in these rain barrels, which we did do to help reduce the flow at the time of a heavy storm into the street. But I guess I sort of wonder that if I was required to do this, why wouldn't my neighbor be required to do it? Because I didn't even need to ask for a variance. So that's, my concern is with I mean, I really feel it's the village should repair the alley so that the water drains out, but we've called a number of times to complain, and we're always told that it's not priority alley. I mean, one thing that's, if you've gone out to see it, most of the alleys have garages on either side, but this is sort of a weird block where there are two houses with very long lot in between, so there's only a small number of houses on here. So we're not a priority. I looked through the capital plan with all the alleys that are set for repair, and there's nothing in it with our alley, and I don't know how to raise the issue with the village. So I'm just hoping that whatever is proved for my neighbor doesn't make the problem worse.
So the alley gets a lot of water now.
Yes.
Okay, and under this proposal, they're supposed to have 340 square feet more of pervious surface, correct?
Correct.
So that should provide more land.
Pervious, not impervious.
Yeah, pervious. So that should provide more land for water to be able to, basically soak into.
If that's the case, I mean,
I agree. I think the math is a little fuzzy, but I came up with something closer to 200. But
So it's-
there is more area for water to absorb is the
But-
result of building this.
I mean, I guess I don't understand why I was asked to put in rain barrels. If shouldn't.
Is that, Lisa, do we know why? I mean, it's beyond our scope of this board. But
As I mentioned in my email, I sent your email to Chris Kordick in the engineering department, and he responded that he received it, and I can't access the email, but he did say something. He recalled that you were asked to do best management practices for stormwater. I don't know how that might be different than any other applicant, but I know everybody gets looked at very carefully because of the issues, and certainly with the issues that you've identified specifically in your area, I'm sure they'll be asked to do something. I just don't know. You'd have to talk to Chris about the details of that particular review.
Okay. But the other thing is in terms of if they're taking out the, I don't know, if they're just changing the design, I would want to be sure that there wasn't anything that would be more likely to send water north as opposed to south.
Well, I think there will be a net improvement overall, and that we assume that the runoff from the reduced impervious surface that they are creating with this new garage, that reduced the runoff from that hopefully will not aggravate your area in the alley by increasing the flow in that direction. But it is a net improvement.
Okay.
And Lisa, this still does go to engineering for further review after it's been approved?
Absolutely. No grading plan has been submitted yet, so that'll have to be as part of the permit if it's approved through zoning.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Please come up and state your name and address.
I'm Debbie Peterson, 210 9th Street, Drew's neighbor, and he is a wonderful neighbor. I am not coming here to make trouble. I'm really thrilled to have him as a neighbor. I've lived here for 35 years. I probably am one of the few people who watched the alley dugout, and unfortunately, those cement walls put in. When I moved in, I got 2 feet of water in my garage within 2 weeks, and we rebuilt our garage higher, and then the alley was dug down, and that's when these unfortunate walls were put in. I have been waiting for someone to redo this project so the wall that Drew is going to take down would allow for some drainage, because I have major water problems in my backyard because there's been no ability, because of this platform that was built up, to allow for any drainage to come. So his putting the pad that drains out will help the ability, I believe, for my yard to be able to drain out. He seems willing, and, for us to be able to work and make sure both of us don't have difficulty. That house, from the beginning, why they wanted to keep that pad, I have no idea, would get water like this in their yard, which would drain into my yard, and I would have basement water problems. And I have had for 25 years and have spent a lot of money on my basement to try and prevent that finally. My big concern, which I voiced to him, was with this larger pad, and I do have to say, is as much as he said, as it said that this is a decrease in actual backyard coverage, when you're counting that, you have to realize there's also been a big addition to the yard, which has taken up backyard space besides this pavement since the project was began. But this is going to drain and get water out of both of our yards, so I'm pleased with that, and so I just wanted to say that. But I also have to say that he does have a hardship because of these walls, and this is a hardship that goes not only on him, but has been a major hardship for us at trying to get in. And we built our garage before the walls were put in, and so we suddenly, last year, when someone put a wall directly along the lot line, have no idea where the snow is going to go when it starts snowing in larger amounts. This year we've been trying to carry it and dump it around in a side of our yard. I did tell him I was a little worried where he was going to put his snow to try and get it off the alley, because there is basically, because of the fence, absolutely, we have real trouble when they only can bring in, no garbage truck can fit in our alley. No fire truck could ever fit in our alley. Nothing can fit in our alley, but nobody ever puts it on as a project that needs to be done. And last year, as far as talking about her water problem that we had between us, after we had the melt of the first snow and there was water like this, then we had a very deep freeze. Water this deep froze in the alley by my house. When cars finally started breaking through, then we had a ridge that was this deep. For several days, we couldn't take our car out either side of the alley because it scraped the bottom, and we thought it would make a hole in the gas tank. So something needs to be done. I don't think it's the responsibility of, say, Drew, who owns a home, to figure out how to make the water drain out of our alleys, because we're all supposed to have our backyards drain to the alley and then out. But I am here basically to beg the village to think about the fact that it is not only the responsibility of us as owners, but because you've built, and I also am questioning whether engineer needs to come and decide whether even the wall that's opposite him needs to be there, or whether they could have instead just let it landscape down gently so that there would be a way for snow to be pushed aside or things like that. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you.
Just to sort of...
I would encourage you to come to the Board of Trustees meeting and repeat what you have said, your concerns and your neighbors' concerns about the problems in the alley, the water problems. So please show up at
When is that?
August 27th.
Okay.
One more thing, I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. So this project with the removal of that wall is going to improve alley access for the entire block?
The removal of that wall, it'll definitely help me, because I've built my driveway like this, and then that wall comes up. His wall is probably 8 inches, and if my husband, in order to get out, now that that fence is there, he has to back up and around several times, and I have gone over the edge of his wall at trying to cut the corner even at that. So yes, that wall, getting rid of the wall on his side is a huge advantage.
I
to
noticed
me.
that there was a lot of scars on the concrete walls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have, and the other thing, our garbage people are saints, because when that snow is like that and when that ice is like that, he has to lug each of our garbage cans all the way down the alley to have them dumped out, because he can't get his truck down there, and I have no idea how he gets our garbage when it's as bad as it is with all the water or with all the ice. So, I mean, our alley is a nightmare. 8 feet, 8 inches wide. Anybody who comes in to do any kind of construction is horrified and says they've never had to deal with this. And to tell you the truth, I'm planning on selling my house fairly soon, and I should be able to walk away and go, whatever happens, happens. But I feel responsible, having seen what has happened over the years where people haven't paid attention to this alley and allowed a fence to be built right on the line and things like that, and have progressively made more problems for everyone. Okay?
Thank you. Please show up at the board trustees
Okay.
meeting.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to comment on this application? Seeing no one, we'll close the testimony and have a motion. Anybody wants to move? Mr. Boyer?
Regards to case number 2019-Z25, I move to recommend granting a request for 119.3 square foot rear yard pavement impervious surface coverage variation and a 40.8 square foot rear yard total impervious surface coverage variation to permit the construction of a 2-car garage in accordance with the plan submitted.
I'll second that.
Second, Mr. Peloton?
Very interesting alley that they have. I think the existing conditions really caused the hardship. The parking pad is, the way I see it, is really an approach or a runway to where the garage really needs to be placed because of those high curbs or those walls. I don't think there's a placement for the garage that would be an improvement over this existing plan. There could be a different location, but I don't believe it would actually be a better location. Also, like they're removing between 200 and 340, depending on the math, reduction in impervious surface from the existing conditions. And as we heard from one of the neighbors, this project can be considered an improvement over the alley access for all the neighbors on the block. So I think it meets all the standards of review.
Philip?
Oh, no, I think that, I think it's going to be a net improvement. And, you know, I think that Mrs. Shanley's concerns will be addressed by engineering. It's not something that we decide. And the width of the alleys is not something that we decide as well. I appreciate it, and I do believe that, yes, there is a definite hardship here. In some cases, I think that it seems a little thin, but I haven't seen an alley that narrow, so.
No pun intended.
Yes.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I think, you know, we get a lot of these, conditions to, build a 2-car garage where either there is no garage or there's a 1-car garage, and the village, likes having the 2-car garages to get cars off the street. You have some novel challenges here, but with the net pickup of pervious surface, I think it meets the standards of review and will be an overall plus for the alley situation back there, so I can support it.
Any other comments? I too, there's a clear hardship here, and I would hope that the village engineer, in working with the applicant, would do as much as possible under your control to mitigate the runoff or to improve the water situation in the alley. You can't solve it by yourself, and we hope that if you come to the village board meeting, that they will pay attention and respond to your need. I can also approve it. Can we call?
Mr. Boyer?
Yes.
Mr. Pelletin,
Yes.
Mr. Colang,
Yes.
Ms. Norick,
Yes.
Mr. Sermon,
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry.
Chairman Schneider.
Yes.
All right.
So that is approved. Can the applicant come up and sign?
I move to authorize the chairman to prepare the report and recommendation for the zoning board of appeals for case number 2019 Z25.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Mrs. Shanley, since this is going to be on the consent decree, I don't know that the village board is going to hear this on the 27th.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think we would urge you to come to the meeting, remove it from the consent agenda, because I think you want to bring the issues to the board's attention. I think it's important.
So
But-
you ask,
but-
like, when you arrive?
But only-
I'll email you the instructions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Thank you.
Next case, please.
Our next case is 2019 Z20, 1150 Central Avenue. This is a request for a special use for an art studio to permit the operation of the Rock House Music School.
Hi, thank
Hello.
you for your time.
Good evening.
So we are proposing to expand the music studio at 1150 from the second floor into the first floor as well, and shutter the coffee and cafe business permanently, so that we can expand down into that area. Right now, what we found is that the music studio is one of the most thriving, best parts of that business that can survive and can continue to grow. We think that is the future of our business, and the way it kind of fits in with the Wilmette and the plan is that we're trying to bring sort of more traffic, more families downtown, and I think this is a great way to do it. Is we're going to offer programs for ages 3 and up, and so there's going to be a lot of different opportunities for families to come downtown, take a class with us, have kids in multiple classes, adult music lessons as well. And so, again, it's bringing more traffic and more interest in it, from a family perspective.
Could you introduce yourself? Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name's John Lonergan, and I'm one of the new owners of the Rock House.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
And so ultimately, we're not proposing to expand at all. We're just renovate. We were just proposed to renovate the first floor to allow for the space plan I think that you've seen in your packet, which will allow for a very small snack shop, but a much bigger music retail shop where we want to be able to sell musical retail items such as strings, books, guitars, basses, drum kits, things that the community would need from a music retail perspective, which doesn't really exist downtown. I think the nearest musical retail for us is we have to drive up to Guitar Center to get what we need, which is in Highland Park. So that's one issue. And then also the second would be to create a bigger rehearsal space / performance space for our kids. Right now they're upstairs in they're very small, cramped rooms, so it's really hard to practice for them in terms of really playing in a band. And so when you play in a band, there's some very specific rehearsals that need to go on in a large part, and a lot of people don't know this, but when you play in a band and you're up on stage, you actually can't hear the other instruments that are playing with you. So it's a really interesting thing where you have to wear earbuds and listen to yourself or to the other instruments, and you kind of pick and choose which instruments you look at. So it's kind of a really interesting thing is when you watch those guitarists up on stage at the Grammys or something, they actually can't hear anybody but the drummer, which is a really fascinating thing. So that's part of our rehearsal space. And what would allow us to do there is to have a front desk and a waiting area for parents. So right now the parents would have to go upstairs to wait, and there's a very small, cramped waiting area. This would give a nice, bigger waiting area, especially if they have younger, smaller children with them. It would be a more comfortable space for them to wait with things like coloring sheets or some toys for the kids to wait as well. So that's sort of the proposed space plan for the first floor. No changes are being proposed to the second floor. So that is the only changes that we're proposing.
Will the operating hours change?
Slightly, yes. We're not going to be open as early in the morning because we won't have the coffee. We'll be open in the mornings mostly for the younger classes, like classes we call Rock and Tots, which are for ages 3 and up, where the parents would come in and participate in group music classes. And then we'd probably have a break from noon to 3, and then we're going to continue to operate the same hours as the music school is now from 3 to 8 p.m.
Any questions for the
I
applicant?
guess some of the standard questions whenever we have a special use is the staffing, how much is that going to increase, and potentially the parking. They're just, whenever we have a project like this.
Yeah, so from a parking perspective, lots and lots of our parents drop off. We do expect a few more parents to park and come in as we make the improvements. However, with the decrease in the cafe traffic, it should even out and basically be neutral in terms of additional parking. Now, and what was the first part of your question?
Staffing.
Staffing.
Staffing, yeah.
So we did have a couple of baristas on staff. We do expect there to be a few additional music staff as well. But with the reduction of the barista staff, it should, again, remain pretty much neutral. It's just we'll have more music classes going on, and there won't be a cafe.
And if they do drive, you can have them park more remotely if that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times what will happen is they'll drop off. They have, typically with our private lessons, they're a little older. They'll drop off. They'll go find a place to park. They'll come in. And again, one of the things we're really targeting is to have that so that both kids maybe come into class. They come in, they wait. They're able to have a place to wait downtown and sit. And then once their kids are done with lessons, maybe they can go to, another vendor downtown. Whereas right now, I think what's happening because we don't have a place for them to wait is that they're just dropping off, going home, coming back, picking up, and not staying downtown. So this might offer an opportunity for them to actually park and come in and stay downtown and then maybe go grab dinner afterwards or go grab some ice cream or whatever it is. And I think that would be actually a huge improvement for bringing people and keeping them downtown, is having an ability for us to have a waiting area.
Any other comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody want to speak on this application, regarding this application? Seeing no one, we'll close the testimony and I'll need someone to make a motion. Mr. Cullen.
Move to recommend granting a request for a special use for an art studio to permit the operation of the Rock House Music School at 1150 Central Avenue in accordance with the plan submitted. The zoning board must determine if the special use should run with the land or the use. I think the use runs with the use.
Use, yes.
Basically, you're just kind of reconfiguring what's going on there.
I'll second it.
So I think it meets all the standards of review, and good luck.
Right, I don't see a detriment to this use. It really seems to be continuing on with the same type of traffic, foot traffic, employee levels. So I really think it's a neutral, neutral addition to parking and traffic. So I can support it.
Can I just say I'll miss the coffee? Like the coffee shop.
Any other comments? I agree, and it won't have a major change in impact on both traffic and et cetera. We are, as not unusual these days, we're losing some retail frontage, retail uses, but these are the times when these things happen like that. But I can support it. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Klein.
Yes.
Mr. Boyer.
Yes.
Ms. Norick.
Yes.
Mr. Pelleson.
Yes.
Mr. Sermon.
Yes.
Chairman Schneider.
Yes. So this will go with positive recommendation to the board. They will meet on August 27th. If you can come up and sign. You may want to show up. They may have some discussion on this, although with a unanimous approval, it'll probably go with the...
Just one.
I move to authorize the chairman to prepare the report and recommendation for the zoning board of appeals for case number 2019 Z20.
All in favor?
Aye.
You call the next case, please.
Our next case is 2019 Z21, 400 Linden Avenue. This is a request for a 1-foot candle illumination variation to permit the installation of wall-mounted lighting.
Good evening. Please state your name and address, please.
My name's Kathy Lerner. I'm the property manager for 400 Linden. My address, though, is 2218 Washington, also in Wilmette. And Mr. Schneider, I used to work in your department at Continental Bank 25 years ago.
Oh, whoa.
So I just thought I would say hello.
Oh, my goodness.
Anyway, 400 Linden was recently sold about 8 months ago to a partnership, and we're making lots of improvements, and it's been neglected property for a very long time, and I think it has a lot of potential to change that whole neighborhood. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But we are looking to do some parking lot lighting, and it's more of a safety and security issue versus anything else. There is virtually no lighting there, and there's a dance school. There's plenty of tenants that are there late at night, and there's an alley adjacent to the building, and that alley we need a one foot candle variance for. It is adjacent to more commercial property, and so it's not a residential building that we're asking for a variance near, but it is a safety issue. I mean, my tenant had a drug deal done a week ago, and
Okay, we weren't doing the dealing.
no.
Okay.
But I'm saying, we're off the L there. The neighborhood can be touch and go. People come off the L and they're looking for, trouble. And so we just feel like the tenants are nervous walking to the parking lot without. Some of them have to go through that alley. The village hasn't provided any lighting in that alley, so we're asking to put it there. The adjacent building is owned by Charles Heller, who would be happy to have extra foot candle on his commercial property as well. And
That's 420, is that the adjacent?
that's 519 4th Street. 519 4th Street. So the alley
Oh, it's to the north, okay.
to the north, yeah.
Got it, thank you.
So, and then as on the west side of the parking lot, it goes to 0, so we are not impacting the condos there at all.
So it's just the north side you need
It's
the variance
just-
for?
And again, that's all commercial property there, and they're,
And then there are really only two that you're proposing, two light fixtures in the alley, is that correct?
yeah. And frankly, my lighting specialist is with me, and the only reason the foot candle is high is because the building's low, so the reflection is brighter than it is on the other side of the building, which has a higher, we can hang the fixture higher. So that's the only reason it's up a little bit.
And my name is Ann Kustner-Hazer. I'm the president of AKLD Lighting Design, and it is my office right on the alley. And we've been there for 2 years, and the lighting, I mean, the girls are nervous at night, and I thought it was an exaggeration until the first time I drove in the back parking lot at night and turned my headlights off. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they weren't kidding. It's really dark. We have a security camera in the back that caught the drug deal. And, it's just in a unique area of town that you have to be a little more careful. And we are predominantly a female, we have mostly females in our office. And it's the reason, just for the technical side of this, is we took this light fixture. It's a full cutoff light fixture. We have it down at the lowest milliamp rating we can get. And the reason why we selected this fixture is it's full cutoff, but it's very even illumination. And that's really the key for safety. It's not necessarily foot candle levels, it's even. We don't want really bright and really dark, because your eye just mixes it up and it can't see the darkness, those dark pockets. So we really wanted even illumination, and that's why we've got where we've got. It's a little under a 1 foot candle variation. But anyhow, not to slice foot
Question,
candles.
what is the foot candle level, and where do you measure it? 30 inches off of the ground typically?
We actually, usually in an interior space we would, but we measured it at the pavement for exterior.
And what is that reading?
It's about 1.3 foot candles.
Oh, okay.
And I'll tell you, we took foot candles all the way around on the sidewalk because we didn't want to bring up the lighting level in the back because we didn't want to attract people, but we didn't want to bring it down, so we were trying to kind of subtly match around the building area what is out on the sidewalk.
Oh, so that's what's out on the sidewalk?
Right.
Okay. Because requesting 1-foot candle seemed, you couldn't even discern 1-foot candle, I don't think.
It's hard.
I mean, this is, right here, it's probably 70-foot candles on our desk, so,
Yeah, I mean, what's on the sidewalk in front is the same.
yeah. A parking garage, I think, is 3-foot candles or something like that, so,
Very impressive. Yes.
yeah, I didn't bring my light meter.
Okay.
I should have.
Any other questions for the applicant? Comments? Thank you very much. And I know you remember me because of my mustache.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was he a nice guy back then?
He was tough.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. I'm easy now, much easier. Okay, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move to recommend granting a request for a 1-foot candle illumination variation to permit the installation of wall-mounted lighting at 400 Linden Avenue in accordance with the plan submitted.
Second? Second.
I think it's a very reasonable request, and I mentioned before, 1-foot candle, you won't even be able to tell the difference. And I like that they compared it to the lighting that's on the public sidewalks. So I think that's it's a good solution.
And that was almost identical. The light that's thrown off of the lights they're proposing, and then the sidewalk light?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it'd be a continuation of that.
All right, and then the safety concerns, obviously,
Yeah.
are being eliminated, so, or being improved, not
The
eliminated.
1-foot candle is, you wouldn't be able to, maybe when it's that dark you'd be able to tell, but you could never tell in here.
The difference between one,
1.5 to whatever.
okay. Yeah.
So I can support it.
Any other comments?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is the area of commercial and where this light actually is going to be, and it doesn't seem it's going to be affecting any neighbors, so I can support it.
I agree for reasons of safety and clearly the alley and the parking needs lighting, and there are no residential neighbors directly affected, and so I can approve it also. We'll take a vote.
Mr. Sturman,
Yes.
Mr. Boyer,
Yes.
Mr. Colang,
Yes.
Ms. Norick,
Yes.
Mr. Pelletin,
Yes.
Chairman Schneider.
Yes. That goes with a positive recommendation. If one of you can come up and sign the fact that you have been here, and it will be on the consent agenda. I don't know if the village board will want to discuss it, but the meeting will be on August 27th.
Okay.
When it will be, it may not be discussed at all. But just in case, maybe you might want to show up.
Okay.
No, that one's for you.
Move to authorize the chairman to prepare the report and recommendation for the zoning board of appeals for case number 2019 Z21.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next case, please.
Our next case is 2019 Z27, 206 Girard Avenue. This is a request for a 28.5-foot fence height variation and a 26.0-foot fence height variation to permit the installation of a 32.5-foot fence in the front yard, side yard, and rear yard.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening. My name is Carola Friedman. This is my husband, Dimitris Papanikolaou, our architect.
If you could speak a little louder.
Yeah, sorry. I tend to do that. I apologize.
That's all right.
We're newcomers to Wilmette. We recently bought a new property, and we're building a new house in the end of the cul-de-sac in Girard. And our lot is in a unique position, not just because it's next to the golf course and Canal Shores, but also on its location relative to the sorry, I'm not a golfer. I'm going to embarrass myself. The tee hole, is that the way? And number 4, of course, we knew that being next to a golf course, there was a possibility of finding balls and balls flying into our lot. And we did see some, but we were unaware of just of the degree of the situation and just how pervasive it could be. So when we started construction in winter. Of course, people don't play golf as much, and it wasn't such a big problem. But now that the weather started getting nicer, we just realized the dimension of the problem. And what we're requesting is to build a fence on the west side of our lot, bordering the golf course, because we're worried about the safety of our young son that's going to be playing in the garden. The biggest issue is not from what we can observe and where we find the balls, the teeing off from the golf. We don't see as many balls in the front side of our property. They're coming through the side towards the middle of our property, a little bit towards the back of our property, which I would assume it's someone is kicking the ball a second time after it falls within the middle of a lot. Now, I understand that many neighbors are located close by and they're exposed to some degree of golf balls flying into their property. To give you a sense of just how serious the dimension is for us and the fact that it is a real health hazard, we've collected 164 balls since late April. That includes months of very heavy rain. They're dirty, you can see them. There were over 20 balls that we found just after the 4th of July weekend, which is presumably a lot of more people were playing there. So we're very much concerned about flying golf balls into their property. Now, I understand that in the past, kids used to play there, that this was part of Baker. You know, I don't know whether kids were there in weekends where people are actively playing in the golf course, but we consider this to be a very serious hazard, potentially endangering our child when he's in the garden or anyone else that comes and plays with him in the garden, and we would like to figure out an appropriate solution. I understand that it's not an event that would occur with probability 1, but just to give you a sense, today was a news article on CNN of a 6-year-old girl that got hit by a golf ball in Utah and died. So this is a real potential concern, right? We have these high balls that are coming across the existing trees and flying through the side into our property. So what we are proposing is to build a net. We care primarily about the safety of our child, but we also really care about how the net looks and how it impacts us and others. And what I'm going to let my architect discuss the specifics of the project, but what we tried to design was to find a net that would mesh with greenery a lot better. So that's the proposal that you find there, something that doesn't have too many poles and has mostly mesh. And what our proposal includes, we also don't want to see it. We want the protection, but we don't want to see it, is to cover the net with greenery, plenty of evergreens and non-deciduous trees to cover both the front of the net and high up. And we understand the neighbors would like to see trees in the front yard, and we're very happy to do anything like that. Now, this is our current proposal. Our first best, obviously, would have been to have a different resolution when before we started the construction. We talked to Canal Shores, and we proposed building and fully paying for a net on their side of the golf of the tree line. And they said that they don't allow fencing on their property, so they rejected our proposal. And they also did not seem flexible at all to move the tee or do any changes in the current fence that they have around the tee, which, again, I think that would help a little bit, but that's not the main source of balls into our property, which seems to be a little bit further down, given where they're falling in our property. So that's something that would be very much to our liking. It just doesn't seem feasible given the feedback that we got from the golf course itself. And I think if that were to be the case, with trees and so on, clearly wouldn't be visible for anyone other than the people playing golf in the golf course. So I'll let my architect.
Can I add
yeah.
one more thing? Sorry, I am Dimitri's company.
If you could just stand to speak.
I'm the husband. I just want to emphasize again that our main concern is health safety. We're particularly worried about golf balls hitting our heads, and particularly our child. And I agree that in an ideal world, the golf course would be amenable to making changes in the location of the teeing or take some additional measures to maximize safety. So far, they haven't. We have a letter from them basically stating that they're not interested in building any fence on their property. And they suggested that we build a net on our property instead. So that's kind of that's what led to all this. So, and again, I think our architect is going to make a more detailed presentation of the exact features of the net.
Good evening. I'm Peter Nicholas with Nicholas Design Collaborative in Chicago. Can we use the overhead?
Yeah, pull out
is it right here? Is this it?
Pull out the side.
The side, pull out that shelf on the side there. There we go. I'll put it all the way. There.
Okay.
And just put things on it.
Oh, okay. Not that easy to see, but our proposal has 4 8-inch steel posts that extend down into the ground in concrete that'll be right on the property line to the west. There's 125 feet of exposed property that borders onto the golf course. We chose a netting which they use in golf course situations, they use in ballparks and so forth. It's a high tensile net. It doesn't snap or break. And it's the reason that we chose it is because it's almost invisible. And our intention was to have the least amount of impact possible. And we felt that this was probably the best solution. Along with that, we wanted to mitigate the impact in the views from the street by putting, and this is the landscape plan, by putting a number of evergreen trees, and sort of a variety of them, along that front edge. Towards the back, there's a little more dense vegetation already. If need be, we would put more back there if that was desired. And we also have run U's along kind of the middle of the site. We want to enhance, that edge. We want to hide the net as much as possible, and those trees grow up to be pretty, like 30, 40 feet high over time. This is a diagram showing the posts, which again are 8 inches in diameter. It shows the dotted lines of the outline of the building. So a good part of the screen is blocked by the building itself.
What determined the height of the netting?
The height of the posts is 32.6.
How did you choose that?
It was actually recommended by the provider of the screening, and thought that was an appropriate height, what they generally use in situations like this next to a golf course.
To 32.6?
32.6.
And the house height is 27?
House is 27, yes. Here's a superimposed picture showing the netting and the posts. And this is it's a highly accurate rendering of the density, the size of the posts, the trees, and the building itself. So we're making every effort to try to screen that if possible. I know that there's been mentioned, or we're reading that there's a concern about wildlife getting in and out of it. We're concerned about the upper portion of the fencing, not the lower portion. So if it's better for wildlife to have some space at the bottom, we can certainly do that. And as Carola and Dimitri mentioned, we feel like we meet the criteria of hardship, being next to the golf course. And I know during the process of the purchase of the building, we were on site quite a bit. We didn't notice much in the way of golf balls. And then once we hit fall, or once we hit spring and we started to build, the contractor just started collecting balls. We would have addressed this earlier had we known it was as big of an issue as it was, or as it has become. And it's truly the safety of the residents that we're concerned about, and also, trying to come up with the right solution for this.
So when was the lot purchased?
It was purchased August of 2018. 17, excuse me.
So you had a whole season in 18.
Right.
Okay.
Right, and we didn't, you'd see a few golf balls here and there. I don't know if it was,
So what if you're still getting golf balls, let's say 32 feet, because this is a par 3. You're still getting golf balls. 32 feet isn't insulating everything that you need insulated. You come back, ask for another 10 feet, 20 feet.
Let me just add on. So you're saying that what club, like, give me an example of what would get over that?
Well, for 200 yards, you'd probably be anywhere from a 3-wood for some people to hybrids to 3 and 4 irons.
right.
You have a lot of trees, obviously, between there and the house.
You know what I've noticed is that it seems like a lot of those, like the line of the trajectory of a ball, there are quite a few trees in front of that. And it seems like a lot of these balls come on a second shot. So people that don't play golf very well and, maybe just slicing it onto
That would be what, a 7
onto
iron?
the lot.
And how high would a 7 iron go, John?
Well, a 7 iron could get over that 32 feet, no problem, if you're slicing a 7 iron, or an 8 iron, or
Right.
9 iron, obviously.
So
But,
you
it's
could
a-
easily do it.
I have done it.
Yeah.
You're not allowed.
My golf game would allow it.
Yeah, mine too.
So that's an interesting question. This is a solution that doesn't solve anything.
May not.
May not.
Well,
It may not solve all the problems.
I don't know if it's going to solve everything, but I
feet of it.
think it'll solve a good part of it.
Something that stops 95% of the balls. It's better than something that stops 0.
How, does it currently propose to go to the ground, or will it be above ground at some level? And where will the netting stop? on the ground?
It'll, probably a couple feet above ground. That hasn't really been determined, so,
What size evergreens are you, I know you have them up there, but what size are they going to put in initially?
They're going to start at like 12 to 15 feet high.
Okay, it's a good sized tree.
Was the consideration, because there's a lot of glass fronting that side, to have any kind of provision in
Well, yeah,
strengthening the glass?
we spent a lot of time figuring out what was the best kind of glass, and we have like a impact-resistant glass that we're using. Also on the stucco, they have a mesh that goes in the stucco that prevents impacts as well, that they use in cities at street level, so that the whole building's going to be wrapped in that underneath the stucco. And then the rest of the surfaces are, concrete and wood, and they're resilient.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I guess you brought up nature and other critters. Do you think birds can get stuck in that? Is there anything you would put on those posts to
We
deter
could,
them?
I'm not, I'll be honest.
I know in Chicago, they hit the size of buildings all the time.
Right, I think buildings and mesh are different things, and to tell you the truth, I haven't looked into it, but if,
Okay.
we were asked to provide measures to do that, we would certainly be willing to do that.
Yeah, I think that the difficulty there is you want to make it as invisible as possible for
Yeah.
neighbors and views, and
But if there was some device that you would put on the top of the column or the sides, maybe. They're probably high-pitched, you probably can't hear them.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I
Comments?
guess I didn't have a chance, but what about other homes in the area around the golf course? Have you seen netting and fencing? I know we had a zoning case several years ago, and it was chicken wire, I think, and a bunch of wood boards that were just kind of randomly put together.
I'm sorry, could you, thank you.
I think we're in a little bit of a worst-case scenario as far as other homes in the same cul-de-sac are. So as far as I've seen, no other homes to the...
On your side, but
On
around
that side,
the other
yes. On the other
course,
side,
yeah.
there's netting on
That's the
154
case.
Maple, I believe,
Oh, that's the one.
North on Maple.
which
Okay.
to our eyes looks more visually impactful than what we're proposing. We're proposing to have, we were actually extremely concerned about aesthetics, so we wanted to propose something that's as transparent and visible as possible.
Yeah, I
So
agree, it would be
We
it'd be a
try
better
to stay away from
solution
some
than that.
solution like that.
This is north of Maple.
That's
Along-
right directly north of Maple.
I remember the case.
It's like 2 blocks north of us.
Okay. Lisa, did they ever, was it approved and I missed the meeting and
It was approved.
it was,
it
okay.
was. There's a picture of it in here somewhere. I've lost it.
Oh,
I've
okay.
been leafing through. Yeah,
It's on the overhead.
that's 154 Maple.
Yeah.
Difference being, as we're going to hear, there's really nobody who sees that unless you're driving east on Maple.
Maple.
One thing I wanted to add about the trees is that it's also possible to get larger trees to begin with. I think some of the evergreens could be brought in at a taller height, and eventually these guys grow to 30, 40 feet tall, so they'll be way taller than the poles. So I think they would fully screen the net.
In the front, there's, you have the whole front yard, so you could move them out so they have room to grow outward and go up, so it would really fill in sort of triangular piece at the front of the property.
We've been told that those evergreens grow about 3 to 4 feet per year, so they grow relatively fast. And in the front of the house, we can plant them at a relatively high height to start with. And if it was beneficial to plant other sizable trees towards the front garden as well to help hide that more, we're happy to do that too.
So you're the person that recommended the height of this netting, did that person check the site out, the situation, the circumstances? Did he come to the
he
site?
came out to the site, yeah.
Is he a kind of an expert on golf?
Well, he's an expert on golf screening.
Golf screening, so he's done this before.
Yeah, he has.
And did he suggest that based on the location of the tee and the hole and the number of second shots that will be taken, because most people won't reach the green in the first shot, did he
Maybe John.
suggest that, or did he recommend that as a result of a 32.5-foot height netting along that side of the property line, that it will reduce the number of balls that will fall into the applicant's lot by, what, 90%? Did he say anything like that?
He didn't really say. He didn't really say. I'm sure that if we could do it taller, he would do that. Just,
Well, I was just wondering, presumably, this would reduce the number of balls that reach the property,
right,
hopefully by a significant amount.
correct.
Right?
Right. Yes.
But we don't
Definitely.
know.
He didn't say, yeah, I know it's going to be 95%. He just said, in this situation, given the position of the tee, the location of the fairway, the position of your house and so forth, and the trees and et cetera, all these different conditions, 32 feet would be a good way to eliminate most of the golf balls. If I needed a letter from them, I could get that.
No, I just wanted to ask.
I was curious if the height was more similar to the height of the house, it would be less visually obtrusive.
Mhm.
I mean, was there an evaluation of if it was a 25-foot
Well,
high?
I mean-
Which is similar to the one on Maple. I think that's the height of that one.
Right.
Was that not effective enough, or?
Well, I mean, let me put it this way. The taller it is, the better. If it needed to be,
I think you could,
if it
I
needed
don't
to
have an
be-
issue with the height. Seen people, not myself, but others play golf. It can happen.
I think you had begun sort of with the question of what if this doesn't eliminate enough? Do you, eliminate enough golf balls and you're still having issues? Do you need to come back and ask for it to be 50 foot tall?
Well, I think there are trade-offs between effectiveness and visual impact. The person that made the recommendation is one of the premier golf street installation. He's done work for New Trio. He's done work throughout the North Shore and in other states. Now, where exactly is the right number? Is it 32? Is it 27? Is it 35? We don't know, but if the issue is not build it, we would like to have some protection. And if the only way to have some protection is to have a slightly shorter fence, I think we'd definitely be open to that as well. We're worried about golf balls hitting our heads. Whatever we can do to prevent that, we're more than happy to pay for it and do whatever it takes.
Any further questions for the applicant? Thank you very much. We will ask stay with us as soon as the others who want to speak on this are done. We will ask you to come back and reply. So please speak regarding this application. State your name and address.
Yes. Hello, my name is Michelle Leonardo, and I live at 202 Girard. That would be the next door lot. Hello. I'm here today as the nominated representative of 27 neighbors of 206 Girard. As a group, we've submitted a formal opposition letter to Lisa Roberts on July 12th for the packet. And I will be referencing this document as I speak here tonight. Have you all had a chance to read that? It was a long letter, but I felt like there's so many things to think about in this unusual fence that I wanted to touch on it. And I want to start by saying that I also added 3 people and 2 addresses, which I submitted the paperwork before the meeting, and Lisa passed that out. So now we're at 27 total people. Okay. After receiving the variance notice, a large group of neighbors met face-to-face to discuss this proposed fence. The overwhelming response was that this 32-foot, 6-inch high, 125-foot-long netted fence was the wrong solution for our neighborhood. We thought it would be more productive to write one thorough letter than write many separate letters to the board. In this way, we hope that it would be easy for the zoning board to understand our concerns clearly and to know that we were unified in our opposition. I was the lucky neighbor who was voted by the group to present here today. While it is important that we welcome our new neighbors to the neighborhood, we also have not had any input on the potential impact on this fence to our neighbors. Let's begin with that there is no precedence for a variance request like this in the entire village of Wilmette, according to community development. In fact, the average fence variance request is only seeking about 2 feet of additional height, not 26 feet plus. It is also, according to community development, completely impossible to hide a 32-foot, 6-inch fence with a natural solution. And I'm going to put up, we were just looking at 154 Maples fence from the side, but I just want to put up a visual of what their house looks like from the front. And as you can see, you do not see the fence at all. It's actually tucked behind their house, and I believe it even starts in their backyard, and their backyard neighbors is an alley, and then a garage, and then the backyard neighbors. So as far as we can tell, there is no, it is not a comparable.
Is that fence that we, the 25-foot fence?
And
The
that's
one with
always
the chicken wire.
Yeah.
Okay, so, sorry. So we do not believe 154 Maple Avenue fence sets a comparable precedent. Their fence is not seen from anyone else's front or backyard view. 206 Gerard's fence will be seen by neighbors in the front yard, the backyard, and extending 7 feet above the roof line. 154 Maple does not believe that there were any variance objections to repair their fence. We assume that it's because no one sees their fence. Whereas 206 Gerard, many neighbors will see the fence, and therefore many neighbors are objecting. 27. We acknowledge that golf balls are coming from Canal Shores Golf Course into 206 Gerard's yard. 153 Maple, 147 Maple, 141 Maple, 202 Gerard, and many Wilmette Gerard neighbors all regularly get balls in the yard. Many have a bucket of balls they collect too. Balls can be a hazard anytime when buying a property adjacent or nearby a golf course, yet none of the surrounding neighbors are using a 33-foot industrial sports netting to stop those balls. And I have a couple renderings here that one neighbor put together of how we think this is going to look. I'm just going to put them up. We use some of the renders available on the builder's website, and then we've taken some pictures of some of the construction and kind of put these things on. Now, I think these renders are really great, but I even think that they might be a little bit conservative on the looming. Like here, this yellow line would be where the second story would be. And you can see it's kind of lining up, so I think it would actually be higher.
So can I ask you a question on, so you're at 202?
Mm-hmm.
So how many golf balls do you get on it?
Oh, we get a bucket. We get a bucket, and
Are they in your front yard?
in the front yard and my side yard between where 206 is and my front yard. I regularly get some balls hitting my house, like maybe like 1 or 2 a week. Let me put up the neighborhood map just so you can see, because it does have the golf course in here. So here's 206, here's their fence, this is the green, this is the tee, this is my house. I do have...
Do any of all the houses you're referencing are all on the east side of the street?
Yes, yeah, it's only houses along this one side. This side is all golf courses. Yeah. And these are some nice trees that actually some of the longtime residents planted many years ago because they were getting so many balls. And I do want to mention, okay, so about the golf course. It's currently right here is where the tee is. It's hidden behind some big arborvitaes and a fence. They wanted to take down the arborvitaes last year, and I didn't know that it was protect the Canal Shores.
Okay.
I should also say that I'm the neighborhood captain for, along with another lady that's here tonight, for holes 4 and 5. So we actually know quite a bit about the golf course and these 2 holes. Canal Shores wanted to take down those arborvitaes at the tee box because they were having a hard time having the grass grow because it was shading their grass on their green or their tee. I thought, oh, well, that would look prettier, get more light over there. But then the neighbors further down the street said, oh, no way, do not do that. It's actually blocking a lot of the balls coming, in our yards. And when I went and I looked, it's extending about 8 feet over the fence that they have there. So I said, oh my gosh, if there's a safety concern and this looks like it is blocking more balls, then I removed my name for wanting to have those arborvitaes removed. So, but anyway, going back and some extra history, that same neighbor that talked to me about the trees here along the line also said in many years in the past, Canal Shores changed the tee position, and at one point they even put it like really close to the street, and that lasted for about a week because like some people got like windows broken. So here's my point, and I'm getting kind of out of order of my thoughts, but I think that this could be an interesting solution to work with Canal Shores and say this is danger. We're all experiencing balls. We don't feel like that. We need a net like this. We shouldn't feel the need to have this for our neighborhood. I mean, we don't want them to feel unsafe, but at the same time, we're all getting balls. So maybe there's a solution we can all work out together. And this is a graphic, and the consensus of the neighborhood is that most of the balls are coming from the tee box. Now there are the occasional second hit around here, but I believe those would be with an iron. People are whacking the ball with their big wood, and I'm not a golf expert, but this is a par 3 hole. A par 3 hole, in my understanding of golf, since we've been talking about this, is that means you get 2 putts on the green, and then the other shot is to hit your ball onto the green. So that means everyone is hitting it as hard as they can to get all the way to the green, and that's why these balls are being sliced, and that's why they're coming so hard and coming over here. So my thought is, and we've talked about this, I mean, there's many different solutions, but one easy one would be don't make it a par 3 anymore. Make it a par 4. Nothing has to be moved, or you put a sign saying you cannot hit a wood on this course. That doesn't take any money, and it just takes a sign. I also want to mention that I'm kind of going off script here, but right here, and this is hard to see, but if you see this gray thing, that is a fence. And that's because there's another tee for this hole. It goes over the canal. And I've lived here for 5 years, and I never realized this was happening until I was kind of looking at this earlier. But because of this fence, it's even narrowing a very narrow hole and making the area that this ball can get to the green even more narrow. So there's a lot of problems with this hole. That's my point on that. Okay.
So, just out of curiosity, are the homeowners from 153, 147, and 141 Maple?
Everyone is here except for, I believe it's 153 is not here, right? I'm gonna look at my map here. 153 is not here. They did not sign our, to be transparent, they did not sign our letter. They have lived there since 2014 and have just relied on the existing trees, and there's a lot of different vines and stuff, and they've just relied on their safety with the trees, the vines, and the existing 4-foot chain link fence for the 4 years for their safety.
So So my question was, I guess, for 147 and 141 who are here, with that construction going, and I assume is blocking some balls that used to come to your backyards, are you getting less balls in the backyards now because the house is in front of?
Hi, I'm Cindy Kogel. I'm at 147 Maple Avenue. And yeah, I think we are getting less balls currently because the house is blocking it. But we also received, prior to construction of the house, after the microburst that we had a couple years ago, or last year, after it took a bunch of trees down, we started to see an increase in balls for a period of time until they honestly started putting the second floor on their house. So we've seen a slight reduction, but the trees actually acted as somewhat of a screen prior to that.
And which home were you in? What number?
147 Maple, adjacent to 153, which is abuts the golf course.
This is a graphic here.
Do you want to hear about 141?
Yes, please.
Sorry. Go ahead. Kurt Topol, 141. Since we did get one ball after the hole was dug, but once they started putting up walls, we haven't gotten any more balls.
Okay, and you used to get?
I'm a little further away, so I would get, Cindy would get a lot more than me, because I'm closer to the school, further away. I would get a couple a month. That would be it. She probably gets 5 or 6 times that many, so.
Okay.
Okay. So in June 2017, a microburst brought down 4 mature golf course trees from the western property line where the proposed fence is being planned. Those trees had provided 206 Girard with a lot more protection and have since left a wide open gap in the tree line where many balls are now coming through. In addition, 206 Girard cleared many of the trees off their lot and the vines prior to construction, which previously had also blocked balls. And that was basically exacerbating their own problem. And they are calculating the number of balls on these gaps that they've created and nature has created. So we recommend, that's why the neighbors are recommending trying a tree solution with natural screening first before resorting to something so massive and so permanent.
Could you go back to the map that showed the the golf ball trajectories?
It's page 33 in the packet.
Yeah, that one. That is an aerial view of the lot before construction began, correct?
Yeah, yes, it is. And, the middle line is right where that gap happened with those 4 trees coming in.
What I wanted to ask is, it's hard to tell, but where did the applicant remove trees on the lot line?
We didn't remove any trees. All those trees are on the golf course center, and they removed them voluntarily because...
Could you come up, please? We're going to have you respond at the end, but go ahead.
So there was no trees on our property. It was all on the golf course side. It was really, really poorly maintained. So a lot of them were dead and branches and so forth. And so the golf course hired a tree removal company to come and take out all the dead wood and trim it up of the healthy ones. And you're right, they did. I mean, there is big gaps now.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
So I apologize for saying that there were trees, but according to our view, that the vegetation has been quite thinned out from where it was before. And that might be, to your earlier point about they had the lot for a year, why didn't they know that there would be so many balls the previous summer? And it might be because they hadn't cleared those trees yet. So that's something.
One of those, okay.
Yeah, they cleared those trees, vegetation, like a month before they started construction, in my best recollection. So we talked a little bit about the safety issues on Canal Shores, 4th hole, and again, we really are pushing for them to work again, going back to the canal shores. They can utilize all the neighbors who are getting balls and know that there's a safety concern, and then maybe as a group effort, we could make up a better solution. Like I said, this is a narrowing area right here, which is causing a problem. The amount of shots that you get is a problem, and there's probably other solutions that could be addressed there. In addition to landscaping and working with the golf course to reduce the number of balls, protective solutions that don't need any special variances should be explored at 206 Girard with the boundary of the property. These could include things like pergolas, awnings, trellises, and smaller fences, netting directly on their wall of windows, etc. And perhaps the hardest part to point out, but still important to say, is that all parties involved in designing 206 Girard could have taken more care to protect their owners from golf balls with more functional design decisions. 206 Girard has requested this variance so late in the building process of their home that the options are more limited, more difficult, and probably more expensive to correct. The fencing, the home design, the landscape should have all been submitted to the village at one time for review, so the challenges could have been worked out together. Things like natural screening, building size, placement on the lot, exterior materials, indoor-outdoor living spaces could have been thought up holistically up front and changed accordingly. We feel the poor planning of 206 Girard should not adversely affect the neighbors and has shifted the problems to us. It was not a surprise that the owners were building next to a golf course or the golf balls would be a problem. It was a known hazard. The builder's website notes that the house is along a golf course with golf course views. The homeowners knew in advance about the golf concern because they met with the golf course officials at their lot before the architectural plans were submitted to the village. At least one neighbor mentioned the golf ball problem to the homeowners directly. Plus, a member of the building team had talked to neighbors and expressed concern for their safety of their men while they'd be constructing at the house. And So here's a picture of the wall of windows that is facing the golf course, and I believe that's why they want this net, is because they're afraid that the glass will be broken. And we previously thought this might be a outdoor deck, but maybe it's just a green space. But we also thought that could have been why they wanted it so high and 7 feet above the roof line. We've also learned that before 206 Girard and the surrounding properties were developed was an open space for a play yard for the Baker Demonstration School. From the 1960s to 206, approximately 500 plus kids a day would play outside on the same land with only golf course trees and the vegetation to protect them from the errant balls. A 40-year-old long resident of Girard Avenue recounts none of the children ever got injured by a ball. We believe that the requested industrial-sized fence is an eyesore and will diminish our property values. All neighbors may incur hardship in selling our properties in the future because of it. It is in close proximity to all 4 homes that directly border 206, all which will see the fence from their properties. There are at least 10 more houses along Girard and Garrison and Maple who will have sight lines from their front and backyard posts of posts and netting. And if you look at where the people are opposing this, all the homes in red addresses, it's everyone except for this one that can see it. And you can see the density of the opposition, everyone down the street that will see it, and the homes around it. And I should point out that in my particular case, I will see it from the front yard and the backyard. The netting, the netting will block airspace that is currently open. We have an immense amount of wildlife in this area due to proximity of the golf course, the canal, and Lake Michigan. This includes foxes, deer, raccoons, skunks, coyotes, possums, rabbits, squirrels, chipmunk, mice, snapping turtles, bats, birds of all sorts, including hawks, large horned owls, hummingbirds, finches, seagulls, etc. We are worried that the birds and animals will get caught in the netting and potentially be injured or killed. Based on our research, many baseball and driving range fences like this employ screeching squawk boxes to keep birds away to avoid getting caught in the netting. Black netting is particularly hard for them to see and makes it more likely to get caught. Also, if an animal were to be caught in the net, we assume there wouldn't be the ability to rescue it on a timely basis. And we included a lot of wildlife endangerment attachments in the packet. If our recommendations don't succeed in reducing the balls for 206 Girard, we would be more likely to support a solution where a man-made items taller than the traditional 4 to 6 foot side yard fence would be completely obscured behind the west side of their house. This means not seen by neighbors and the public, and would be keeping in the way that 154 Maple does, where no one else sees their fence. Keeping a solution tucked behind the frame of the house may also help with the wildlife safety, since birds may not be soaring in close proximity to the home structure. Besides the other things mentioned so far, please also consider these following items. Lightning strikes. Will the poles become unsafe lightning rods? Do they need to be grounded? Utility easement. There's a marked SBC utility line running along the side on the engineering dock. How will that interfere with the footings for the pole? Canopy coverage. Has the canopy coverage been met with the new trees and with the submitted for the packet? And how do those trees grow next to the netting without tearing it up? Maintenance. How will the owners deal with the tears and holes in the netting? Will the entire netting need to be replaced if torn? How will they repair the netting when the trees have grown between the netting? And how will they remove the annual cottonwood seeds that will be covering it every June when we get inundated with them? And the existing fencing. What will become with the broken down chain link fence that is existing? And we also, all of us, will welcome an improvement in that area. In summary, we have thoughtfully considered the variance submission, and we oppose it for all the aforementioned reasons. We employed the village zoning board to reject it and then relay the information to the village board to also reject it. We urge the zoning board to enlist 206 Girard homeowners to explore alternate solutions that focus on 1, landscaping of their lot in the cul-de-sac with natural screening elements. 2, reducing the number of errant balls by collaborating with Canal Shores on modification to Hole 4's layout and existing screening. And 3, inclusion of other physical barriers on their property that do not require a variance. And thank you for your consideration, the 27 neighbors of 206 Girard.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
You have questions?
When was your house built?
My house was built, we closed at the very end of 2013 and moved in at the very beginning of 2014.
Have you or anybody else that you know of talked to Canal Shores about the whole reconfiguration?
So 2 years ago, Canal Shores had a community meeting. They were thinking about redesigning their whole golf course. So they invited everyone to come, and many of the people in this room did, because we were all concerned about safety. And we wanted to make sure whatever they did to redesign it, that our hole got safer and not more dangerous. And and so what the designer that came, he gave a terrible presentation, but he basically wanted to change all the whole flow of the golf course to go in the reverse direction, which, can you imagine rejiggering a whole golf course? That seems very expensive, and Canal Shores is just a community golf course with a very, very minimal budget. But the designer said the reason why he wanted to reconfigure the flow was because that over, let's say, 85% of the shots, bad shots in golf, are a slice, and they go to the right. And so right now, as you play this hole, when you slice, according to our, when you play this hole, and there are many golfers that play this that are very bad golfers or just learning, they are slicing to the right. So that is why, that is basically the problem. So this designer said, well, if we reversed it and the tee was here and the green was over here, now all those bad golfers would be slicing and the balls would go into the canal. And we were all like, well, that sounds great. But then about a month later after that, they realized they didn't have the funding and they didn't have the money, and that would never happen. So, but at the time, that's when myself and the lady from 154 Maple, we decided to become hole captains so that we would always keep an eye on like what's going on from a safety concern and with any new designs.
So out of curiosity, was within the talking to the designer or talking with your neighbors, talking with Canal Shores, was shortening the hole and increasing hazards ever brought up? So for the purpose, obviously, you would choose a different club with less velocity?
That wasn't discussed because it was actually the whole course was going to change, and it wasn't just this one. We have never approached them besides the neighbors back 20, 30 years ago that planted these trees to help, and they do actually shield quite a number of trees, but there's an open spot from right here to right there where the balls are really getting in, and I think that's where that's coming into all our properties, is like right over here mostly. I think if they knew that it was a really bad problem, I think with some more meetings and some more feedback, they might listen to us. And it was the one neighbor that said that they had even experimented moving the tee at some point. Now, this was probably years ago, where it's totally new ownership or management, from that. But that is something that they did. And she said that the old tee was where the women's tee box is, which is right here. So this is the men's tee box, and it has a high fence, chain link fence, and some arborvitaes. But then the women's tee box has no screening at all, and that could be something that could be immediately implemented with just a few, greeneries right there. But anyway, they moved it. We were told that they moved it back because they wanted to make the hole more fun to play. So, we're suffering because they wanted to make it a longer hole, more fun to play for the golfers. But, it's really, I would say safety would become first.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I guess I just have one comment, that if you're getting those balls in your front yard, if you look at it, your front yard, your corner of your house that's closest to the golf course lines up with the second R in Girard. So they're in a much more precarious position than any of the other homes when it comes to the balls landing, just due to the location of the house. So.
But I'm just not sold. Besides, if it was a life or death, like every single ball, I just don't think this fence is going to capture every single ball. That would be a life or death scenario, I guess, is my point. Besides all the other points, is I just think that there will be some balls coming in the front yard, and I don't think a lot of them are going to be lobbed over at this point on the second shot. I think that there might be. When I get the balls, it usually hits my front porch. My front porch, either in the porch or just the frame of the porch. So it's really coming at the 1-story mark. It's not going like up on my second story. I have windows up there. If they would hit the window up there, it might be a problem. But they've even hit the window on my front porch, and it hasn't broken. we considered that when we built our house. We considered the building materials. Now, there was nothing we could do against the windows, but we put hardy board, which is a cement composite that wouldn't get dinged, or it would be sturdy and withstand any golf ball hits.
So is there a contact that you've worked through at the?
Yeah, I have the contact of the president of Canal Shores, and then I'm not sure his name, but or his title, but his name is Steve Newman, and he does a lot for organizing it. And I've met most of the board members as well in the past.
It appears, and I think you're right about that fence by the green. People, I mean, that should be a bailout. If it was a bailout area, people might try to hit it there, but now they're trying to hit it to the right because they don't.
Yeah, they're already slicing, but it's going.
So either shortening the hole, or working out something with Canal Shores would be, I think, the best way to make everybody happy, so to speak. And I don't know if you can kind of energize the same group you have here, and maybe try to work with the applicant and see if there's something that can be worked out.
Yeah, I mean, we would like that with the natural screening. I think that would be the best solution for all of us.
What do you mean
by?
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you did approach them, I'm not a golf course planner, at least not here on TV. I am. I would say the area across on the color rendering, it would seem that if they made it kind of an angled hole, like a slight dog leg, where the people would tee off and they'd almost be trying to position the ball like on the yellow line and eliminate the fairway on that side. So it'd be like taking the whole area from the house at 114 across from there, taking that greenery that's on the right-hand side of the yellow line and eliminating those trees, and then putting more trees on the right-hand side. So people would have a tendency to shoot, instead of just to the north, they'd be going a little bit to the northwest.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, if they would be shooting more that way, it would help.
Yeah. So if you imagine where the red line is for the proposed fence, if they remove the trees on the west side of that fairway right now, which is along the canal, and then eliminated the fairway and extend those larger trees that are there,
The trees that
have the tendency to aim.
The trees that line that canal, it does go on a very steep grade into
it
the.
does?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
okay.
about a 20-foot drop down.
Not only
so.
that, but then this fence that protects that tee box
Yeah.
would be, keep preventing you from reaching the green even more than it already does.
Yeah, it's a problem because this is actually a tee box right here, and then there's a fence, and then there's the green. But you have to kind of go around that protective fence for the other tee. So it's kind of like they jammed a little bit too much in there in that one spot.
Okay, any other questions? Or,
Thank you again.
thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak on this application?
Hi, I'm Kurt Topol, 141. I just wanted to update the packet. Michelle put the packet together, and then I took a visit to the two installations that the petitioner suggested that they're, I don't know, you're probably not going to see this. Let me do it this way. I went to Niles North and to New Trier, and I just wanted to show you that this one's a little higher. This one we estimated somewhere between like 40 and 50. But this is at the Niles North baseball diamond, and just to give you the whole, the kind of look of it. I got a little bit closer shot here to, give you the idea of the four posts. I wanted to tell you one other thing about this one. You see some trees over on the left side, but they're not really close to the netting. They're separated between the netting and the and a small bleachers for people to watch. One of the things that I think we need to keep in mind here is we want to have a natural screen. I know there's talk about having a natural screen and the netting. I'm pretty sure that the ones I looked at was Flood Netting. Their website suggested that trees and landscaping be kept away from the netting because it will destroy the netting ultimately with the landscaping that's around it. So I think we need to be careful about combining the two, although that would probably be the best solution in order to keep balls out. It's one is going to destroy the other. At least that's what I hear from the website. Here's a couple of close-ups of the Niles North fence. There's a baseball caught in one of the sections there between the cable and the netting, and you can't see it. Although I can give you hard copies. Should I give them to you? Okay. If you look at the close-up of the one on the right, there's already in that one holes starting to develop. Little rips where the netting becomes broken so that it will eventually fall apart. I'm hoping you can see it in there. So anyhow, I wanted to show you those pictures. Oh, there's one of the New Trier. This was, we couldn't find one by the lacrosse field, but we found one. The only thing that looked like this in Northfield was at the end of the end zone, and this netting is shorter. This one's only about 20 feet, and it is screening footballs from people standing in line at the snack shop. So again, I wanted to show you these pictures because this is more of the application that I think this netting was meant for, where it's not in a neighborhood. And I truly feel for our neighbors, their unique position, they are going to get more balls than the rest of us. There is an issue that needs to be dealt with. It probably should have been dealt with, as Michelle said, holistically, with looking at it from the perspective of how much land we can save to plant on, how much we can orient the house. I just think now it's going to be really difficult, and it's going to have to take the golf course responding to make this fence, which is in some ways not enough because it's not going to do anything for the ones that come through the cul-de-sac up the front of the house. And it's too much because I'm not sure how many balls come in past the point of their house. So anyhow, I just wanted to update you and show you some of the installations that they suggested.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you.
It's Cindy Kogel again from 147 Maple Avenue. And I just wanted to point out that the images that Kurt shared was baseball netting, and golf ball netting is a far denser weave. It's going to be more visible than the images that were just shared. That it is going to be darker. It is going to be more obvious, especially the fact that it extends above the house and extends the entire 126 feet. It will be visible. And right now, I'm only seeing them show plantings at the front of the yard or towards the front of the house, but it means that the fence will not be obscured from view for the other neighbors that see the back end of the property. And I just wanted to make that point that it's not necessarily going to be obscured. And the landscaping plan that they shared in the packet was not on file at the time of the variance request. So all of the neighbors who came and pulled plans, the only landscape plan that we were able to see was the original one that they submitted with their permit, which didn't really show any treatment to the western side of the property. So even though both the neighbors had mentioned it to them. They had meetings with Canal Shores prior to the construction, prior to permit. They hadn't made any effort at the time of permit to develop a landscape plan that addressed this, and only now, after the house is well under construction, are they looking for solutions. So I just want to make that point too.
Has anybody here looked at, instead of the black, what the white would do if they make a white even?
I did a little research on this
Oh, it would age, but maybe it
myself. Yeah, the
be
black is supposed to be slightly more durable than the white, from what I read. The white is far more visually obtrusive, so for people,
The white is?
it looks worse.
Oh, okay.
It's much more visible. It's also more visible for birds. So in your packet, we also shared with you a number of, not everyone calls the evening news when a bird gets stuck in Topgolf netting, but there were a number of reports on the internet about birds that have been caught in golf ball netting at Topgolf type facilities. And it does take a large cherry picker to come up and get that down. And frankly, I don't think our neighbors have access to that equipment, and I don't think Canal Shores has ready access to that equipment. So we do have a lot of hawks and owls in our area, and we do have a lot of migratory birds that come, and they actually, the 3/4 of the population of migratory birds fly up and down Lake Michigan and use vegetation near the lake to rest. So it is a real concern for us that birds will get caught, and there's not going to be a ready solution to rescue them.
Thank you.
What if, I have a question, what if they were to put in a shorter net?
If
Would
it
that
is
be acceptable to your
if it's
group?
shorter, perhaps, if it's obscured by their house and not visible to the neighbors, and they dealt more with plantings, that might be something we would.
Talking about plantings on the inside of the
Plantings on the inside of, yeah. I mean, I think we want to have as much of the property be natural, and we don't want to see the fence, and we don't want the fence, if the fence is visible to us, it's not visible to wildlife, birds. It's not visible to birds when they're flying, and so it's very likely that they will get caught. So a solution that, I think what Michelle was saying is if the fence is kind of right in line with the frame of the house, I don't know. On one hand, birds may be less likely to fly into it, but then again, you know how birds fly into glass, and Chicago just actually passed a bird protection ordinance that now requires the first 33 or 30 feet of a building glazing to have frit glass for bird protection. So, even if you put netting there, I'm not so sure that's going to deter birds without a natural landscape solution.
Yeah, do you have any idea, have any birds got caught in the 154 maple fence?
I'm not aware of anything. I couldn't speak to that. But they have a lot of trees still and landscape there.
So did I hear you correctly when you said that you might be amenable to a fence that's within the frame of the house? So is that height?
And width.
And width.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's unnecessary to extend the fence towards the back end of the property. And I know that the neighbors, I've lived there since 2013. My house was originally built in 2008. They're the last property to build a house in that area. And everyone moved there we all knew there would be houses going up, but we moved there because of the vicinity, the natural landscaping, the character of the community. And so it's a real concern that I didn't move next to a top golf course. I moved next to, a golf course and that had natural fencing and natural landscaping. And, one of our other neighbors, we know that Canal Shores doesn't have the money to invest, but they are very open, from what our other neighbor has found in the past, to neighbors who want to solve a problem and are willing to make a monetary contribution to solving a problem. Our Girard neighbors have found the golf course to be very amenable to that.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Anyone else want to speak on this, regarding this application?
Everyone, I'm Nathan Freeborn, live at 114 Girard, and I do have a lot of empathy for the owners. I genuinely have empathy for you, and the fact that the property's been owned for so long, and tonight you have to come and say, we made a mistake and didn't realize all the golf balls coming on our land. I think that was a huge oversight on the part of the professionals helping you. And I can tell you, no one ever came to my house, no one ever came to Michelle's house and asked for any type of information about the traffic of golf balls in the neighborhood, in that immediate area, and whether or not they removed debris or not over the last 12 to 18 months, I still would have had the same exact answer for you. I also just wanted to come up real quickly because there's just been an assumption that the flight of the golf balls is kind of starting at the property line where this fencing is supposed to start, but the village owns a piece of land on the southwest corner of that cul-de-sac, and I think the village would be very amenable to putting in some sort of natural barrier there as well, given what everyone's shared tonight. So I wasn't sure if everyone on the board is aware of that option on the table, but I think, where I live at 114 Girard, I've lived there for 9 years. I've seen balls come flying, land right at my feet or come close to me. And I think that is the best first line of defense for the applicant's home. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak regarding this application? Seeing no one, applicant, please, you can respond to all the comments that you heard.
Thank you. So we'll take turns. First, let me thank our nice neighbors for echoing our concerns about the health hazards of golf balls. It seems, I agree that in principle, it might not be the only suggestion, but it would help a lot if the golf course was cooperative and was willing to make changes to their plan. From our experience with them, this is a letter we received in response to our suggestion that they build additional fencing or protection on their side, which would be completely visible to any of the neighbors. The response to that, and we offered. We understand that the golf course is short on funds, so we actually offered to completely pay for it. The answer was no. So I'm somewhat, maybe I'm a naturally pessimistic person. Maybe a concerted effort with the entire neighborhood would have a better outcome. So far we tried, it didn't work. Second, regarding planning, I actually disagree that we didn't plan it properly. On some level, our thought was sort of similar to what the neighbors. We also don't like visual disruptions to the neighborhood. So our thought process initially, let's start with natural fencing and see where this takes us. But then the issue is if you start with building trees throughout, then it's much harder to actually build the net in between the trees, because then you have to basically move the trees, put the poles, etc. So it seemed that if a net was to be built, now is the time to do it before trees were placed on the east side of it, on our property side. And our plan throughout was to shield the entire fence with vegetation, both in the front and in the back. And again, we're actually extremely concerned about the visual impact of this. We also don't like to live near an industrial golf ball fence, but at the same time, we also don't want to get hit on the head with golf balls. And again, we're 40 years old, we'll probably be fine, but a 6-year-old or 5-year-old child will not. So that's our main issue. We don't care about the glass. The glass, as Peter said, is tempered. The stucco is protected. I think that's going to be fine. Our main issue is health. The other thing that Nathan suggested is actually, he's entirely correct. And this is something we thought about, which was to actually, Lisa knows, we asked her about applying for a maintenance easement for the part of the property that's right in front of the golf course. And then we would basically plant additional, at our expense, we would plant additional trees there to provide even more protection against the golf course. And Lisa advised, I think, to do it sequentially, maybe? Is that?
It's just a right-of-way permit.
Sorry?
I'm sorry, it's just a right-of-way permit through the engineering department to get permission to put trees in the right-of-way.
But I think first we needed a maintenance easement for that.
I don't believe the village would do an easement. It would just be authorization to plant trees in the
Okay,
parkway.
okay, that's fine. Then we would maintain
Simple.
the trees and all that. Okay. Sorry, maybe we're just not sure what the procedure is.
If you can you point out that village-owned property? I don't know which.
It's
this,
right
this
here.
piece right
It's
here.
right in front of the red line.
How big is it?
That I don't know. It's the
I think it
right-of-way
extends
of
about
Oh,
here,
that-
but I may be
oh.
wrong. So there's space enough to plant some protection.
Okay.
That said, based on our neighbor's presentation, it seemed that the maintained belief was that most of the balls are coming from the T line. I believe that's probably correct, for the balls are hitting these houses. However, I think a lot of the balls that we're getting are actually being hit as a second shot from here. And that's where we thought having more protection here would stop these balls. So it's not just an issue of moving the tee line or just changing the direction of the golf course. Now, maybe if we were to change the flow of the golf course, that would be better. But again, this is not something we control because this is not this is not within our control. So I'll be enthusiastic yet highly pessimistic if the golf course were to accept such a plan. You guys want to add something?
Maybe I'll phrase it differently. So I think we're absolutely delighted to work with all the neighbors to try to work with Canal Shores and force them into improving the situation for everyone. So we tried to do it on our own. Michelle knew. I think I had commented to her when we met, and we were unsuccessful, even though we offered to finance the netting there. And the way they express it to us is that, let me read it from this. They say that they do not allow netting on their property, which obviously there is other netting in other parts of their property. And if I have to guess why they decline our request, even though I don't know for sure, other than what they expressed to us, it perhaps relates to Michelle's comment that the Canal Shores is quite strapped for cash. So we are absolutely delighted to work in alternative solutions, and if that were to solve all our problems, that would be fantastic. But if Canal Shores, I think my guessing is that they don't want a net that then they're going to have to maintain on their side, and that might be a reason why they don't have the resources to do that. So my concern is that they might not have the resources to work on any proposed changes to improve it. If they were quite difficult, if there were simple things that would help, absolutely, we work with everyone and we try to do them. Again, I don't know much about golf to do that, but again, I don't know to what extent changes on the tee and so on will solve the full extent of the problems, and we would have, if there are remaining concerns, we would need those to be addressed. Just out of the sheer magnitude of the balls that we get. If I had to extrapolate on a somewhat nice weather summer, we will get over 500 balls into our yard, given how many we've gotten. And again, these are not rolling on the front, they're sort of falling on the side and towards the end of our lot.
I just wonder if looking at it and looking the way a golf ball will go, there might be a better solution than even just being right along the lot line. I mean, if you can work with Canal Shores, you might want to start on your property and almost go to 45-degree angle from, that would be the southeast.
Are you saying changing the tee from back here to somewhere up here?
No, I'm saying
sorry.
for the fencing. If in the end you have to do the fencing, instead of, right now your home is here and your fencing's here, maybe there should be a collaborative effort between you and the club to do something like this. So the fence, some of it's in your front yard, but that would seem to me that that's the direction the golf balls are coming. Right now you're almost...
The golf...
Have an angle like this.
I mean, you'd have to find somebody that's an expert, but
Okay.
yeah, going from the upper left-hand corner of the page to the bottom right-hand corner.
Right now, the majority of the balls that we're finding are here
Where,
They're
yeah.
not up here. We understand that the neighbors are receiving them here. We haven't collected as many walls in the,
Okay.
in the front. Before we started building, yes, there were, we would even find some here, and that's why the neighbors are getting them all the way to the back. There weren't that many here, but on occasion we would find one. There, the vast
Yeah,
majority are here and here in the back.
So I'm just saying the natural inclination for a property that's shaped like this would be to just say, let's just put the fence straight along the lot line, but it might be more beneficial to have it on some sort of angle that you can,
And again, if it's on their side,
something,
But it'll be much more visually intrusive.
well, I'm saying maybe, I'm saying if maybe it was broken down into two, it would be more natural. Here, if you want to put this up there. Do you see where the two lines are? You know, maybe you could do two separate pieces so it doesn't look quite as commercial as one large piece. Yeah, but I'm saying you'd have to do a collaborative with,
They
well,
already have some fencing. I mean, they got the fencing by the T, they got the
yeah, but they
fencing by
might
the other
say,
T. It's not
that's
like
fine, you know, as long as you pay for it and you maintain it, they may, yeah.
we offer to do it all the way here.
We basically
Yeah.
offer to have the net on the other side of the tree.
I guess probably their fear is, their response is, if we do this, how many other people are going to ask to do it? So I think, you know, maybe if you, I don't know what, I'm sorry, your architect's first name, if a solution like that might work. It might, I guess it might be less visually intrusive if you go with the route of a fence rather than just one long piece, because that does look like a, yeah.
Because there are,
Yeah.
there's a whole, the trees that we're planting. So
Sure.
just to clarify, the net is not instead of the tree line.
No.
Or instead of a natural solution.
No.
It's to enhance a natural solution because balls fly through tree branches. And then it can stop that. So it'll be
So in this
trees
area, for
plus
example,
net.
there are currently tall trees, correct?
Are there,
There are tall trees here.
believe so.
In the neighbors.
Not according to
We
this.
couldn't do something like that without taking a lot of trees down.
Well, maybe those aren't the exact spots, but I'm just saying if you broke the fence down into a couple of pieces, maybe it wouldn't be as, you know, stand out as much as it does right now with, you know, being a straight line. Just a suggestion.
okay, any,
Could I ask the architect, could you put the current or proposed landscaping plan?
Sure.
Because I believe it's different than what was in the,
While he's looking for that, Lisa, if Canal Shores wanted to put up this fence on their property, I'm assuming they would need the same variance.
They would.
they would what? Say that again?
Need the same variance.
and I would suspect that Canal Shores, one of their, perhaps their reluctance to do it is, it's a very narrow hole, made more narrow by the tee box on the upper left corner. And if you put a fence in on the course, it's going to make it that much narrower.
I think it shows a level of accepting the liability that there is an issue as well.
Go ahead.
The attorney would be able
Somebody
to
gets
refer.
whacked by a
Sure, no, I mean, I gotta tell you, with that many golf balls, there are other avenues that can be pursued on for injunctions and things that, I mean, the flip side being you bought next, you know, you bought next to an airport, you bought next to a golf
Highway.
course.
I mean, they weren't even willing to, we offered to plant trees on their side, and they're like, no. So,
Well, trees are anathema to growing grass on a golf course.
but I mean, it was along this edge here, which is right next to the fence, which is, there's no grass there anyway. It's just and it's a bunch of trees that have been really poorly maintained. They haven't done anything with them. They just let them go.
Could you speak a little louder?
Sure. I mean, they haven't maintained those trees at all, which is why a lot of them got taken out because they were dead.
Yeah.
And it has, and Michelle is correct. I mean, it has created a hole. And, yeah, we'd like to fill that hole in, but they're not they haven't been willing, at least at this point, to even talk to us about planting other trees, possibly on their side. And I think that just to address the
There were some questions that the neighbors had. Among them was lightning and
well, yeah, sure. I mean,
diminishing property values. Can you respond to any of those things?
Yeah, I don't know how it would have any effect on their property values. Although, I mean, we're trying to create a minimal solution, and if we wanted to put up a wood fence, I think that would be worse. And so, I mean, our intent was to make something that is unobtrusive as possible. And, there was a concern about SBC and the cables. We have an approval letter from them that says it's okay for us to work around it. And we've looked at it, and we can work around it. If there's a concern about lightning, sure, they can be grounded. That's not a problem. It's a stake into the ground. It's not a big deal. We could put lightning rods on top of the post even if we wanted to. I think it would be probably more helpful to them because the lightning would be attracted to the highest point, which would be that, other than their chimneys.
Well, I would think the metal post would be a conductor by itself, right?
Correct. I agree with my clients that, and the neighbors, that it might be nice to have a group effort to try to talk to Canal Shores and find out if they would be more amenable to working with us, because they weren't before. And I think it's a great idea. I also think that there's a need for some kind of screening. I don't think that's going to be a 100% solution. I don't think any of this is a 100% solution, but we're trying to minimize it as much as possible. And, I think the mention of broken glass being the problem, no, it's not. We addressed that up front. Poor planning, that's an opinion, I'm not going to comment on anyone else's house, I can tell you that. I think that the sight line of 10 houses down the street being affected by this is a stretch. Okay, well, that's your opinion. This is mine. And also 154 Maple, I understand that people don't see it from their houses, but if you probably walk across the bridge, you can definitely see it. And as far as the chain link on the Canal Shores property, that's their property. So, we could, sure, we'd all like that to go away if we could. So, we can definitely ask them about that. And as far as, where the fence runs in the front, where we're showing some plantings, and then in the back we're not. But there's a lot more dense plantings back there, so I think that the screening fence itself would be a lot less obtrusive. But I think that they're probably, my clients are, open to putting more planting back there. And so in the front and in the back, there's definitely a lot more space where you could move the trees away from the fencing. Whereas in the middle, we'd have to do something that's much more vertical and columnar.
What is the current schedule of completion for the house?
We're into probably next spring.
Next spring?
Yeah.
So there is time to
There's
work
time, yeah.
possibly with the neighborhood.
Sure.
And Canal Shores as well. We've done that in the past, haven't we, Lisa, where we've kind of tabled? Or is that the correct term? The last one we did was that I remember was the church on Wilmette Avenue.
The zoning board could table the case, sure. Mm-hmm.
So,
Can I ask about the picture that you have up currently? It appears as though the fence may end at the back of the house on that one. Am I reading that incorrectly?
Yeah, that's just, I don't know, those are just a couple of dotted lines that got heavy, graphically. But the fence goes all the way from property line to property line.
Okay.
This is that area in front where, we'd like to plant more trees just in this triangular area, in this triangular area over here.
When I was there, there was maybe a tradesman, there was a kind of parking pad off the street to the west. And there were some bushes around that. Is that the area that we're talking about?
It's actually, that's probably like over here. So but this is that area right in front of it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I think that, we wouldn't extend it that far.
Can I ask, that's quick, when the building permit was issued, prior to the building permit being issued, did you request a variation on any other issue?
No.
No. Okay, I thought somebody meant. Any other questions for the applicant?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have a question for the neighbors.
Okay.
I assume golf balls have broken windows, dented cars, or maybe broken car windows.
40 years.
Two what? Two windows?
Windows in 40 years.
So, does the golf course take care of that?
They used to when they had money, but that's 4 decades ago. Not now.
You mentioned that car spot, the parking spot. It's a public parking spot, but only guests usually park in that spot because none of the neighbors want to park in that spot because it's in the line of fire. So, but there would be that little cul-de-sac, called it the cul-de-sac apron. That would cut down a lot of balls, and that big gap where all those trees came down in the microburst, I believe, is when they described where they're getting a lot of the balls by their interior courtyard. I believe they're coming in from that gap.
Thank you.
One more quick comment. The landscape plan that they showed shows that their proposed trees actually overlap the fence that they're proposing as well, and you can't plan to have evergreen trees that grow 4 feet a year planted right up against a net that's going to grow through that net. I mean, it's not going to.
I think they'd probably,
Well, but they're also not taking into consideration all the trees further down their property line that are on the Canal Shore side that overhang that fence line as it is. Are they going to work with Canal Shores to chop all that down too?
I presume they will work that out. It will be their issue to deal with.
Well, it will be the neighbor's issue because if they build that fence, all that greenery further down will go away, and all we will see is the fence. Because they can't put that fence up there without taking all that down.
Thank you. All right. Anybody, I assume we've heard from the response from the applicant to the community's input. And
do we need?
Is there anybody else that wants to, I guess there's no one else that wants to speak on this, and we will close testimony.
Table? Yeah. I think before we close, we have to, as a committee, we need to discuss a little bit to see if they want to table it, because they'd have to approve it, right?
I think we need a motion to start discussion. If you want to make a motion to table, I think we can do that and vote on that, and if it passes, it passes, but if it doesn't, then...
We don't need their input for that to table?
You probably would like to ask them about that, yeah.
Before we start?
But I think you need to make the motion first.
Okay.
Make the motion first, so I'll make the motion to discuss tabling case number 2019 Z27.
Second. Is there a second? Second. Discussion. So, for what purpose would you want, what is the purpose of tabling it?
I would say, my vision on it would be, unless you want to go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It was
Yeah,
your
no.
motion.
Well, I'm motioning in behalf of you.
And presumably, we need the applicant's consent to this, right?
The reason that I would say to
That's probably a good
table it
idea.
would be give the neighbors, the owner, Canal Shores all to discuss and see what other options there might be. Otherwise, if we don't table it, it's going to either get voted up or down, and if it does end up getting voted down, I don't think they can come back for another year, right?
For the same request.
For the same request. So, you know, it puts you in a position, and if you know that the home isn't going to be done till spring of next year, I think there's a little bit of wiggle room to...
But they also discuss what happens at the village board level if they do get denied here, so the second bite of the apple.
Well, that's the thing, that they would have to be denied by the village board in order to be...
No, if we voted up and down. So if we voted up and down and it was, the request was denied, then they can...
The village board takes it up, but they have to have a 5-2 vote to pass it.
Supermajority.
Right. But
Can I ask, can they come to the village board, if we were to deny it here, can they come to the village board with a revised proposal?
I was going to suggest that the village board could work with them if they wanted to come back with a proposed request, either remand back to the zoning board or come back, table at the village board level and try to come back with another request to the village board. I don't think the village...
Yeah, my feeling was that just there's a little bit of a window of opportunity to discuss it, and if there is that opportunity, it would seem to me to take advantage of, you know, really sitting down and talking to Canal Shores and working with the neighbors. I mean, that's what we've done on past projects where, you know, there's a large group against a particular variance. You know, if there's one or two people, but it seems like when you've got 27, it's difficult to...
I would think that clearly the Canal Shores is unlikely to be cooperative. I think the board meeting will be on the 27th, more than a month from now, and I think there might be enough time to, when they go before the board, to propose an amended request or to push it back and so forth. Wouldn't that be simpler?
The question is, are you interested in tabling this and coming back in a month or so after you've had a chance to sit down with the neighbors, maybe go as a group to Canal Shores and see if it would be, I mean, if you and the neighbors could come up with a joint plan that everyone supported, obviously it makes it much easier for us as the board. Right now, though, you have 27 different people signed on to something that say they oppose this, and there are other pluses and minuses, so nobody knows how the vote would go, but if it went negative, then you'd have to get 5 out of the 7 trustees to vote positive for you in order to get it passed. And since there is this window of time until spring, are you interested in spending a little time with the neighbors and coming back in a month? Or is that something you're not interested in and we should just have our discussion on it and vote yes or no and move along?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is the month,
sorry, could you? Thank you.
Is the month the shortest
or the longest deadline? If we're to table it, because I suspect getting people to coordinate and... Sorry?
If you want 2 months, you could have 2 months. I mean, there's no...
4 months? I mean, is the...
Lisa?
We would just want to continue it to a specific meeting date, so you don't have to redo notice, but we
I
could
think
do
if the
4 months.
neighbors were interested in working with us and trying to get a solution, and again, maybe I'm being pessimistic here, and you guys have certainly much more experience at this than me, the extent to which Canal Shores is going to be cooperative, but if the neighbors, which seems like most of them, with a few exceptions, share the concerns that we have, that it's a health hazard, if they're interested in trying to make an argument altogether to Canal Shores to make some changes, I think we're happy with that. We're also more than happy to make amendments to the proposal on file. If shortening the fence on the back, which may have the trade-off between visual impact versus protection, maybe has a bigger visual impact than protection it offers, we'd be again open, I think, to that. And possibly shortening the height, again, if that's an issue.
Can I ask to understand the process? So if we table it now, we all work, and let's say Canal Shores turns us down, can we come back with a proposal either as it is or amended
You
for
can come
consideration?
back with the same proposal, right? Or
Or
an amended one.
one that makes everyone happy,
No.
or happier.
Everyone happier.
Happier. I understand that this is not perfect solution, but yeah.
The thing is, if it gets voted down here, out of the 7 on the Board of Trustees, they make the final decision. You've got to get, John said, 5 compared to 4. And if you're there the day that there's only 6 people,
look, as we said, I'm going to speak for, I think we're
Yeah.
in agreement that this is a good solution. That was our first step to try to work with Canal Shores. Maybe
Yeah.
it didn't work because it was just us. If it can be all the neighborhood and really explain our concerns,
Yeah.
that might help. Would that be?
I think that they will not agree to the net, though. I think it's something different, so I would just drop that idea. I think.
Well, everybody can discuss it.
Yeah, well, that's,
Well, hold on, wait, so if you guys are all in agreement, that's great, and then you guys can move on from there, and then, throw up the whiteboard and start, figuring ideas from there.
One other clarification, since all the neighbors are here too. So if we find some intermediate solution with Canal Shores, but there is still some remaining problem, can we come back and propose a revised version, for example, that solves the remaining issues? Would that also be a possibility in the future, if we table it now?
If the case is tabled, you either have to come back to move forward, or it has to be
Withdrawn
withdrawn.
at some point.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Understood.
so we need to choose, if that is what the applicant would consider, we need to choose a date and how much time. would
Do
you
they
want?
need to choose a date right now?
you need to choose the date. It can be a short date and continue it again,
Oh, okay.
but,
So they
Did
could
you-
table to the next meeting, and
Yeah,
then if
did you
they
hear you
find
could-
I think we're going to need more time than that. I think it's going to be 3-4 months.
Okay.
90 days.
And then what you can do is, if you set a date and it's too soon, you can always
And push
continue it.
Right, okay.
So we'll start with 3 months
Yeah.
or so.
Yeah, that would be good.
like November 6th?
Sure.
That's the first.
Okay, November 6th, so can somebody make a motion to continue this case to November 6th?
So,
I can't make a
Well,
motion.
we already had, didn't you have the motion?
That was for the table.
No, that
Table,
was,
okay, got
So
it.
move to continue case number 2019-Z-27 for 90 days to November 6, 2019.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
thank you.
We'll go with that. All right.
Do you have other things after this? Thank God, right? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time and effort and for the community, the neighbors.
Move to approve the meeting minutes for the Zoning Board of Appeals for Wednesday, June 5th, 2019.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Move to approve the meeting minutes for Zoning Board of Appeals for Wednesday, June 19th, 2019.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Thank you. What time is it?
I guess there's no public comment, so we'll close the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.